This felt like Game of Thrones meets a military recruitment video with aliens. I'm speaking of the upcoming Netflix movie War Machine starring Alan Ritchson, Jai Courtney, Dennis Quaid, and Esai Morales. Unfortunately, it is not coming to the big screen. It's just going straight to Netflix. By the time this video goes up and the embargo has lifted, it will already be available for you guys to watch, and I do recommend it. I enjoyed the heck out of this movie. Excuse my dog. She always seems to know when I'm filming a review. It's just Chibi. Okay, if you haven't seen the trailer yet, well, you'll see clips of it during this video. But basically, Alan Ritchson plays someone in the army who is trying out for the Army Rangers. At the beginning, Chibi! Alan Ritchson plays someone in the military who is trying out for the Army Rangers to enter their program. And during a sort of training mission or whatever, during the Ranger training, he and his squad or unit, they end up coming into contact with an alien machine. And all hell breaks loose once that happens. So that's the basic premise. And there's a lot that I enjoyed about this film. It's not perfect, and I will touch on some of those things later, but I wanted to go over the different things that I really enjoyed about this movie, and there were a lot of them. I'm super bummed it's not coming to the big screen. I don't know how many times I'm going to say that, but Netflix, come on. Anyway, I felt that there was a lot about this that was grounded in realism. Obviously, you have to suspend disbelief to a certain extent because we're talking about like Decepticons coming to Earth, basically. But things about the military training, I mean, I've not served in the military, but a lot of it looked very realistic to me. And also realistic reactions from his superiors or those who were in charge of training him when they realized he had some issues. There was some stuff going on with this guy, and it wasn't something that they just ignored or swept under the rug. They confronted him about it, as you would expect should happen in the military. Maybe sometimes it doesn't happen enough. But anyway, she had disrupted me multiple times already, this dog.
Really?
Yes. Do you really want to get up here? Come on. I also liked that the film took its time setting up the characters. I'm not saying it dragged, but you get a pretty decent grasp of several of the characters, even the more minor characters, before all of the action starts. You already have a good handle on Richson's character, and then of course his superiors show up a little bit, and you kind of get a superficial knowledge and understanding of them, but they're not really involved in the core group of people that are coming face to face with this alien machine. So I like that it gave you that good solid buildup before the action hit, before everything goes wrong. And once that alien threat makes itself known to them, the action is almost nonstop, and the intensity level up here. For me, I mean, there were multiple times where I gasped out loud or I was getting tense like this, like I could just feel myself tensing up. It was just a wild ride, and no character was safe, pretty much. They are basically no match at all for this thing, and everything goes wrong for them. There are no Mary Sue moments in here, really, because pretty much everything they try fails miserably. They get hurt very badly. There's a scene where they're rolling down a hill as they're trying to escape from this thing, and it's so painful looking. It does not show them just rolling down a hill, la-di-da, and everything's fine. No, they're crashing into rocks. They're hurting themselves each time they roll over, and maybe their leg lands wrong or whatever. It was so cringe, but in the right way cringe. Yeah, it doesn't shy away from the physical consequences of what these people face. I also, for the most part, liked the acting in here. Alan Ritchson there were moments where his performance was very strong. Obviously, he's got this very intimidating physical presence, and he did a pretty good job at selling the psychological strain that he was under due to certain things that had gone on in his life. And I thought he pulled off the performance as someone who was in charge of this unit pretty well. Not all of his moments in here landed for me, and that kind of ties in with what I mentioned earlier about this film not being perfect. It's maybe not necessarily his fault, but just the material that he had to work with. Jai Courtney isn't in here a huge amount of time, but his character is an important motivating factor for Ritchson's character. So they do a decent enough job of setting that relationship up pretty well, even though it's rather brief. So yeah, there were many things to enjoy about this. I also thought the effects were pretty good too for a straight streaming movie. I was impressed with that. Having said all these things, it's not perfect. There are some things that jumped out at me. For example, a contrived plot moment where there's an instrument that is being utilized to detect something. That instrument has been hung up on a tree with a knife, and it's supposed to be watched over. But at some point during some chaos that happens, it's not watched over like it should be. And that felt like something that was just manufactured for the story. I mean, obviously it was manufactured. Everything about this story was manufactured because it's a work of fiction. But what I mean is, it felt contrived. Given the danger that these people knew they were in, the thought of abandoning an instrument that was going to be beneficial for you and abandoning a weapon that was with that instrument made zero sense to me. I guess you could excuse it by saying, well, being caught up in the moment of something happening and you forget stuff, but we're talking about trained soldiers. So you would think they would have a little bit more presence of mind than to do what this particular character did. This is not a huge issue. It's just something that really stood up and smacked me right in the face when it happened, because the first thing I thought was, don't do that, because this is going to happen. And that's exactly what happened. Other things. Given the size of this alien machine, you mean to tell me that it could sneak up on them very silently when the plot called for it? When at other times they could hear it tromping around? Then there's another moment where an injured soldier has been wrapped up in like this thing to carry him in, and he ends up in the water. I don't really buy that he would realistically have remained on top of the water the way he did. At another point, there is a piece of Earth machinery that briefly is able to get the upper hand over this alien machine. I found that hard to buy. Given everything we had already seen about this machine up until that point, it was a little difficult to accept that, yeah, that bulldozer could do this thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm just reading too much into it, picking things apart too much. But also things like, would this alien machine really be functioning in the same way that Earth machinery does? Could you realistically be able to determine or predict what's going to happen based on your knowledge of Earth machinery? Am I reading too much into it? I don't know. These are just things I wrote down as they popped in my brain while I was watching the film. Some other things. There are some cringe moments of dialogue that don't work for me at all. One was an ADR inserted line of dialogue that Ritchson's character says to the machine towards the end of the film, and it was just like, oh, that's a little cringe. It's kind of cheesy. And then there is another time, at least a time or two, where there's a motivational speech that's being given. It just didn't work for me. It was kind of cringe to the point of, like your skin getting goosebumps, because it's kind of like, no, that didn't work. This is the part I'm referring to when I said maybe Ritchson was limited by the material he had in certain parts of the movie. I'm thinking you might know it when you see it. And that does tie into the whole thing about this feeling like a recruitment video for the Army Rangers. That was just something that occurred to me while I was watching. Like, wow, this feels like they're really trying to sell the Army Rangers, aren't they? Also, something else, like, I thought the Army didn't really let you have a beard. I know sometimes in certain situations you can, depending on maybe your deployment, but when you're in training for the Army Rangers, I just don't think they're going to let you have scruff. I don't think that's according to their policy. And Ritchson's character didn't have scruff because of any religious reasons. That's just, he just had scruff. He wasn't cleanly shaven. But other than those things, this film was an awesome time, despite it feeling pretty intense at moments, very brutal was quite gripping. That's not a complaint. And even though it was occasionally, cheesy and had some moments where logic was stretched a little bit thin, I still thought it was a pretty entertaining alien invasion story. It's not something that really reinvents the genre, but it absolutely commits to the chaos once everything starts happening. And given the director who was behind the Hitman's Bodyguard and the Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, and he also worked on the Expendables 3, I mean, he's got experience in crafting high-octane sort of action thriller movies, and I thought he did a pretty doggone solid job with this one. I am giving it 2 thumbs up. Going to rate it probably an 80% on critic lists. And if you guys like this type of thing, definitely check it out and let me know what you think. All right, that's all I have to say for now about War Machine. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Later, guys.